They underestimated you. They overlooked you. They acted as if your presence was optional, your time disposable, your heart replaceable. You know that sting, the one that hits you not in your skin, but somewhere deeper, somewhere between your ribs and your soul. The sting of being treated as if you're less than what you truly are. But here's the truth they'll never tell you. That sting is not the end of you. It's the beginning. The best revenge is not shouting back. It's not proving them wrong in one heated moment. It's not making them feel the same hurt they caused you. The best revenge is living in such a way that they have no choice but to see you rose without them, you thrived without their applause, you built a life so powerful and so undeniable that their silence becomes the loudest compliment. There comes a time when you have to stop trying to convince people of your value, because the more you try, the more you end up betraying yourself. When someone consistently overlooks you, dismisses your ideas, or treats you as if you are easily replaceable, it's not a moment to double down on proving them wrong. It's a moment to step back and redirect your energy. Many people waste years in a cycle of trying to earn the validation of those who have already made up their minds about them. They adjust their behavior, overextend themselves, and pour their best efforts into impressing an audience that will never clap. The truth is, chasing after the approval of someone who doesn't value you is like chasing the horizon. No matter how far you run, you'll never arrive, and you'll exhaust yourself in the process. The trap is subtle, because on the surface, it feels natural to want to be recognized for your worth. You might tell yourself, if they just see this one thing I can do, if they just witness this one act of loyalty, they'll change their opinion about me. But that kind of thinking creates a dangerous dependency where your sense of worth begins to hinge on someone else's recognition. The more you try to convince them, the more you start to believe their lack of value for you might be justified. You start asking, maybe I'm not enough. That's when you need to stop, take a deep breath, and remember that your value is not determined by someone's inability to see it. When you're in environments where you're constantly undervalued, you start shrinking to fit the limits of other people's vision. You stop voicing your ideas because they're not appreciated. You stop showing your authentic self because it's not acknowledged. But every time you do that, you lose a piece of yourself, and in the end, you've not only failed to gain their approval, you've also lost your own self-respect. The most liberating decision you can make is to walk away from the exhausting cycle of trying to prove yourself to people who will never recognize you. The energy you waste on convincing the wrong people could be fueling the growth that would naturally attract the right ones. Instead of bending over backwards to make someone notice you, invest that effort into becoming someone you're proud of. Improve your skills, take care of your health, expand your experiences, and deepen your self-awareness. People who truly value you will see your worth without you having to perform for it. They'll recognize the quiet power in your presence, the substance in your character, and the consistency in your actions. It's also important to understand that not everyone is capable of recognizing value in the first place. Some people lack the perspective, the maturity, or even the emotional depth to see what you bring to the table. They are drawn to surface-level impressions, fleeting excitement, or self-serving connections. If you're waiting for such people to validate you, you're setting yourself up for endless frustration. The moment you stop chasing validation is the moment you reclaim your power. You no longer operate from a place of neediness or fear of rejection. You stand firmly in who you are, knowing that your worth is constant whether or not anyone acknowledges it. Ironically, it's in that space of self-assurance that you become more magnetic to the right kind of people. Those who value you for exactly who you are, without requiring you to twist yourself into something you're not. Pain has a way of making you feel smaller, weaker, and less capable than you truly are. When people undervalue you, the hurt can cut deeply, leaving you questioning your worth and replaying every moment in your mind to figure out what went wrong. But there is another way to use that pain, one that doesn't lead to bitterness or self-doubt, but instead pushes you toward a version of yourself you never knew you could become. Pain, if you let it, can be reshaped into purpose. It can become a driving force that fuels your determination to grow, to evolve, and to create a life that reflects your true value. When you've been dismissed or overlooked, there's a strong temptation to respond with resentment, to dwell on what was said or done to you, and to make that hurt the center of your story. But when you do that, you hand over control of your future to the very people who underestimated you. Instead, if you take that sting and let it ignite a fire within you, you transform it into energy that propels you forward. Pain can be a teacher, showing you not only who doesn't deserve your time and energy, but also who you are when you refuse to break. Transforming pain into purpose starts with asking the right questions. Instead of asking, why me? You ask, what can I learn from this? How can this moment shape me into someone stronger, wiser, and more focused? This shift in mindset turns every wound into a source of insight, every setback into an opportunity to build resilience. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start seeing yourself as the architect of your future, capable of turning even the hardest moments into the foundation of your growth. Purpose grows when you take the energy you once used to chase validation and redirect it toward building something meaningful. It might be mastering a skill, pursuing a dream you've put off, starting a project you've always imagined, or investing in your personal well-being. Whatever it is, the key is that it becomes about you, not about proving anything to those who didn't see your value. When your focus shifts from them to yourself, your pain becomes fuel, not chains. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. There will be days when the hurt resurfaces, when doubt tries to creep back in, when you feel the urge to look over your shoulder and wonder if they're noticing your progress. But in those moments, you have to remind yourself that your growth is not about their recognition. It's about your liberation. You're not building a better life as a performance. You're building it because you deserve it, because you refuse to let pain be the final word in your story. There's also a hidden gift in turning pain into purpose. It makes you more empathetic and aware. You start to notice others who are going through similar struggles, and your own journey becomes a source of encouragement for them. You become living proof that being undervalued is not the end. It can be the beginning of something extraordinary if you choose to respond with intention instead of reaction. When pain fuels your purpose, you no longer seek revenge in the form of making others feel small. Instead, your very existence, your growth, your joy, and your strength become the silent statement that nothing they did could stop you. You rise not because you want to be seen, but because you've discovered that the highest form of victory is becoming who you were meant to be all along. There is a unique kind of power in letting your actions speak so loudly that you no longer feel the need to announce them. When someone has undervalued you, the instinct for many is to immediately try to prove them wrong with words, explanations, or declarations. But words can be dismissed, twisted, or ignored. Actions, on the other hand, are undeniable. Letting your success be your silent statement is about building a life so rich in results, fulfillment, and progress that even those who once overlooked you cannot help but notice, even if they never admit it out loud. It's about rising so high that your growth becomes visible from every direction without you having to point it out. Success as a form of quiet revenge doesn't operate in the realm of pettiness. It's not about flaunting achievements to trigger envy. It's about living authentically and intentionally to such a degree that your life itself becomes the evidence of your worth. People who didn't believe in you may try to downplay your victories, but they cannot erase them. Your achievements will exist whether they acknowledge them or not. This is why it's so important to focus on creating real, lasting success rather than temporary appearances meant to impress. Building this kind of silent statement starts with focusing on yourself and your goals rather than on the people you're trying to outshine. The danger in centering your motivation entirely on proving someone wrong is that it still ties your growth to them. Instead, your aim should be to prove yourself right, to confirm to yourself that you are capable, worthy, and resilient. When your driving force becomes your own belief in your potential, your actions carry a deeper, more sustainable momentum. It's also important to understand that success doesn't always mean massive, dramatic achievements. It's not just about financial wealth, career breakthroughs, or public recognition. Sometimes the most powerful silent statements are found in the quiet victories, healing from wounds others thought would break you, maintaining peace in your life despite chaos around you, building healthy relationships after being in toxic ones, or developing self-respect where once there was only self-doubt. These forms of success may not be broadcasted widely, but they radiate from within you, and people notice more than you think. The beauty of letting your life be the proof is that it strips away the need for confrontation. You no longer need to engage in arguments about your worth or fight to change someone's perception. Your progress, your happiness, and your fulfillment speak in a language louder than any defense you could mount. And when you reach a point where you're too busy growing, learning, and thriving to wonder whether they're paying attention, you've truly won. Ironically, it's often when you stop trying to get noticed that you start being noticed the most. People may quietly observe your rise, even from a distance. They may never reach out or admit they were wrong, but deep down they will see the undeniable truth. You didn't just survive without their support, you flourished. And in that realization lies the most satisfying form of revenge, one that requires no bitterness, no confrontation, and no wasted words. This approach demands patience because real success takes time. It asks you to be consistent, disciplined, and focused even when no one is watching. But that's what makes it so powerful. By the time the results are visible, they're unshakable, and the story they tell is one of resilience, strength, and self-belief that no one can take away from you. When someone fails to value you, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking something must be wrong with you. You might replay conversations, dissect your actions, and wonder if you should have been smarter, funnier, more talented, or more interesting. But the truth is, being undervalued often has far less to do with your actual worth and far more to do with the other person's ability, or inability, to recognize it. People see the world through the lens of their own experiences, preferences, and limitations. If their perspective is narrow, clouded by insecurity, or focused on shallow measures of worth, they may be blind to the depth and richness of what you bring. That blindness is about them, not you. Recognizing this truth changes everything. It frees you from the endless cycle of self-blame and self-editing in an attempt to fit someone else's vision. If you allow other people's limited perception to define you, you'll constantly be adjusting, trimming, and reshaping yourself in ways that slowly erode your authenticity. You'll find yourself performing instead of living, contorting your identity to fit into a space that was never meant for you. But when you understand that their inability to see your value is not a mirror of your inadequacy, you stop bending and start standing. Some people are drawn to glitter and miss the gold right in front of them. They might prioritize quick charm over genuine kindness, flashy appearances over substance, or conformity over originality. If you don't fit their mold, they may label you as less valuable, not because you are, but because you don't align with their personal checklist. This is why it's so dangerous to seek worth in someone else's eyes. You're placing yourself at the mercy of their biases, blind spots, and preferences, none of which are an accurate reflection of who you truly are. Once you accept that your worth exists independently of recognition, you start to operate from a place of strength. You no longer need to prove yourself to every critic because you understand that not all critics have the wisdom or clarity to make a fair judgment in the first place. Their opinion is just that, an opinion. It is not a decree, and it is certainly not the truth. Some of the most valuable, world-changing individuals in history were overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed in their time, not because they lacked worth, but because the people around them couldn't see it yet. It's also worth remembering that perception can change, but your worth doesn't. A person who undervalues you today might suddenly recognize your value years later when their perspective shifts. That recognition, while nice, is not necessary for you to thrive. The real victory lies in knowing that whether they see it or not, you've always been valuable, and you've lived in a way that honors that truth. This mindset gives you a quiet confidence that others can sense, even if they can't quite explain it. When you stop internalizing other people's inability to see your worth, you protect your self-esteem from being tied to their fluctuating approval. You start living according to your own standards, measuring your value by your integrity, growth, and the positive impact you have, rather than by who happens to notice. You realize that your light is not diminished because someone is too blind or too distracted to see it, and that the right people will recognize it without you having to convince them. Protecting your peace and setting boundaries is one of the most powerful ways to reclaim control over your life after being undervalued. When someone treats you as if your time, energy, or presence is disposable, it's a sign that they either do not understand or do not respect your worth. If you continue to allow them unrestricted access to you, they will take more than they give, leaving you drained, frustrated, and doubting yourself. Boundaries are not about shutting people out completely. They are about deciding who and what you will allow into your mental, emotional, and physical space. Without them, your life becomes open territory for anyone's demands, expectations, or negativity. People often hesitate to set boundaries because they fear being seen as cold, selfish, or difficult. But boundaries are not walls built out of bitterness. They are fences built out of self-respect. They don't exist to punish others, they exist to protect you. When you clearly define what you will and will not tolerate, you send a message to yourself and to others that your well-being matters. You communicate that your time is valuable, your energy is limited, and your heart is not available for constant misuse. Part of protecting your peace is recognizing that not every conflict needs your attention, not every opinion deserves a response, and not every invitation is worth accepting. You have the right to step away from conversations that drain you, relationships that demean you, and situations that pull you into chaos. This isn't avoidance, it's discernment. The more you exercise this discernment, the more you preserve your mental clarity, emotional stability, and sense of self. Without these, it's far too easy to slip back into the patterns of overextending yourself to people who give little in return. Boundaries also redefine the balance of power in your relationships. When people see that you are willing to enforce consequences for disrespect, whether that means limiting contact, saying no, or walking away, they begin to interact with you differently. Those who genuinely value you will respect your limits and make an effort to honor them. Those who only wanted access to you for their benefit will often leave once they realize they can no longer take without giving. While it can be painful to lose people, it's important to remember that losing someone who doesn't value you is not really a loss. It's a clearing of space for the right people to enter. Protecting your peace also means creating an environment that supports your growth and happiness. This could involve surrounding yourself with people who encourage you, inspire you, and hold you accountable in a healthy way. It might mean limiting exposure to negativity, whether it's through certain media, toxic workplaces, or draining friendships. Peace is not something you stumble upon by accident, it's something you intentionally cultivate by choosing what influences you allow into your life. Ultimately, boundaries are a form of self-love in action. They prevent you from repeatedly putting yourself in situations that harm you and help you maintain the energy you need to pursue your goals and live a fulfilling life. They are not a sign of weakness or selfishness, but of strength and clarity. When you protect your peace and enforce your boundaries, you send a clear message. You value yourself enough not to settle for anything less than respect, reciprocity, and genuine care. Rising above bitterness into freedom is the moment you stop living as if your happiness depends on someone else's recognition or regret. When you've been undervalued, it's natural to feel anger, resentment, or the desire to see the other person realize their mistake. But bitterness is a slow poison. It keeps you tethered to the very people and situations you're trying to escape. Every time you replay the past or imagine scenarios of revenge, you're giving them space in your mind and energy in your heart. Freedom begins when you decide they no longer get to occupy that space, not because they apologized, but because you've chosen to move forward without them. This kind of freedom isn't about pretending the hurt never happened. It's about acknowledging it fully, allowing yourself to feel it, and then choosing not to let it define your future. Bitterness says, I won't heal until they pay for what they did. Freedom says, I'll heal because I refuse to let what they did control me any longer. This shift is where your power returns. You stop being a passive character in a story someone else wrote for you and start being the author of your own. When you rise above bitterness, you take away the control others have over your emotional state. You no longer react to every reminder of them, nor do you structure your choices around how it might make them feel. Your life becomes about your peace, your growth, and your joy. Ironically, the most satisfying revenge comes when you're so focused on building something beautiful that you genuinely forget to check whether they've noticed. That's not indifference born out of numbness. It's indifference born out of wholeness. Forgiveness often plays a role in this kind of freedom, but not the way people usually think about it. Forgiving doesn't mean excusing bad behavior or pretending it didn't matter. It means you're refusing to carry the weight of that pain any longer. You're cutting the rope that's been tying you to the past. This doesn't require reconciliation or even direct communication with the person who wronged you. It's an internal decision that says, you no longer get to have power over how I feel today. Bitterness limits your vision because it keeps you looking backward. Freedom opens your vision because it allows you to see the possibilities ahead. When you let go of the desire to see them lose, you free up the mental and emotional energy to focus on making yourself win. That energy can go into building the kind of life that reflects your values and dreams, surrounding yourself with people who genuinely appreciate you, and exploring opportunities that bring you closer to your goals. Another key aspect of rising above bitterness is that it protects your character. When you stay consumed by resentment, it's easy to start mirroring the behaviors of the people who hurt you, being defensive, closed off, or overly critical. Freedom means breaking that cycle, keeping your heart open enough to still trust and connect, but strong enough to never tolerate disrespect again. It's about using the lesson without letting it turn you into someone you're not proud of. In the end, rising above bitterness is not about them, it's about you. It's about refusing to let your identity revolve around being wrong. It's about stepping fully into a life where your joy is self-sustaining, your peace is guarded, and your progress is self-driven. When you reach that place, you realize the best kind of revenge was never about making them see your worth. It was about building a life so full, so free, and so unapologetically yours that whether they see it or not no longer matters.